Let me ask you something real quick. When's the last time you slept a full 8 hours? Not 5, not 6, a full 8. I am guessing you cannot even remember. And here's what's wild. Most people who are running on 5 or 6 hours sleep actually think they are fine. They have adapted. They have got their coffee, their hustle, their grind mentality, genuinely believe they are operating at their best. But here is what the science says. And this is the part nobody wants to hear. You are not fine. Your brain right now might be functioning like someone who is legally drunk. I'm not being dramatic. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm going to show you exactly what is happening, chemically, structurally, neurologically, inside your brain when you consistently sleep less than 6 hours a night. And some of it is irreversible. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to rethink every late night you've ever pulled. Trust me. So first, let's just get clear on what sleep actually does for your brain, because most people have no idea. When you sleep, your brain doesn't just power down like a laptop. It goes into full-on maintenance mode. Think of it like this. Your brain is running a massive cleaning cycle. There's this system called the glymphatic system, and it's basically your brain's janitor. It only activates during sleep. It goes in, it flushes out waste products, toxins, metabolic byproducts, and most importantly, it clears out a protein called beta amyloid. Now, why does that matter? Because beta amyloid is the same protein that builds up in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. Every single night that you sleep less than 6 hours, your brain doesn't get fully cleaned. The toxins don't get cleared. The beta amyloid starts to accumulate. And here's the terrifying part. Researchers at UC Berkeley found that even one night of poor sleep led to a significant increase in beta amyloid buildup. Imagine what's happening to people who've been doing this for years. But that's not all that's going on. Your brain also uses sleep to consolidate memory, to basically take everything you learned that day and transfer it from short-term storage into long-term memory. When you cut that process short, those memories just don't stick. You know that feeling where you studied all night for an exam but couldn't remember anything the next day? Yeah, that's this. And then there's your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, emotional regulation, and basically everything that separates you from acting like a toddler. Sleep deprivation hits this region hard. So right off the bat, less than 6 hours means toxic waste building up in your brain, memory that doesn't consolidate, impaired decision-making and emotional control. And we're just warming up. Your emotions are hijacked. Have you ever had one of those days where everything just irritates you? Where you snap at someone over nothing? Where you feel anxious for no reason? There's a really good chance that wasn't just a bad day. That was your sleep-deprived brain. Here's what happens. When you don't get enough sleep, your amygdala, which is the brain's alarm system, the emotional reaction center, becomes 60% more reactive. 60%. That's not a small jump. That's your brain literally lowering its threshold for threat response. Everything feels more intense. Criticism feels like an attack. Small inconveniences feel catastrophic. You're running on a hair trigger. And at the same time, the connection between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex, the part that says, hey, calm down, this isn't that serious. That connection gets weaker when you're sleep deprived. So you have got your emotional arm going off louder and your calm, rational brain going offline simultaneously. Matthew Walker, the neuroscientist who wrote Why We Sleep and is one of the world's leading sleep researchers, called this a neural seesaw. And when sleep goes down, emotional volatility goes way up. This explains so much, right? The arguments that come out of nowhere, the road rage, the anxiety spirals at 11 p.m., the feeling that you just cannot cope with regular life stuff. And here's the thing that nobody talks about enough. Sleep deprivation is one of the biggest undiagnosed drivers of anxiety and depression in America right now. We're medicating problems that in some cases could be significantly improved just by sleeping more. I'm not saying throw away your prescriptions. I'm saying sleep is not a luxury. It is a biological necessity that we have completely undervalued as a culture. Your brain slows down, even when you think it has not. Now here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly, kind of unsettling. Studies consistently show that people who sleep 6 hours or less significantly overestimate their own cognitive performance. You literally cannot tell how impaired you are. Your subjective sense of alertness stabilizes. You feel okay, but your objective performance keeps getting worse day after day. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania put people on 6 hours of sleep for 2 weeks. By the end, their cognitive performance was equivalent to being awake for 48 hours straight, but the subjects themselves, they reported feeling only slightly sleepy. This is what makes chronic sleep deprivation so dangerous. It's not like being drunk, where you know you're impaired. With sleep deprivation, you're convinced you're fine. You're driving, you're making decisions, you're having important conversations, completely unaware that you're operating at a fraction of your actual capacity. Your reaction time slows. Your ability to process new information drops. Your working memory, the mental scratch pad you use to hold information while you're thinking, shrinks. You start making more errors. You get attention lapses, those micro moments where you just zone out, and they happen more frequently than you realize. And this has real-world consequences. The CDC estimates that drowsy driving causes about 91,000 car crashes per year in the United States. The nuclear accidents at Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island both involved decisions made by sleep-deprived workers. We have built an entire culture that glorifies burning the midnight oil, and we're paying for it in ways we do not even fully see yet. The creativity and learning penalty. Okay, I want to talk to the people who stay up late to work, the creators, the students, the entrepreneurs, the people who think sleep is for people who have already made it. I have bad news. Sleep is not the enemy of your productivity. Sleep deprivation is. Here's why. REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement sleep, is where your brain does its most creative, innovative, associative thinking. It's during REM sleep that your brain takes disparate pieces of information and starts connecting them in ways you couldn't do while awake. This is literally where sleeping on it comes from. You go to bed with a problem, and the next morning you wake up with a solution. That's not magic. That's your REM stage brain running cross-referencing operations across your entire memory network. When you sleep less than 6 hours, you are disproportionately cutting into REM sleep because REM happens most in the later hours of the night. So you're not just losing sleep, you're specifically losing the sleep that makes you smarter, more creative, and better at your job. Studies at Harvard have shown that people who get adequate sleep learn new motor skills, like playing an instrument or learning a new software tool, 20% faster than those who don't. 20%. And for memory retention, one study found that sleep-deprived students retained 40% less of what they learned compared to students who slept normally. So that all-nighter you pulled before the exam? You didn't help yourself. You essentially walked into that exam with a 40% hole in everything you studied. Bottom line, if you are chronically undersleeping, you are essentially capping your own intelligence, your creativity, and your ability to learn. What's happening in your brain chemically? Let's talk chemistry for a second, because I think when people understand what's happening at the molecular level, they take this a lot more seriously. When you're awake, a chemical called adenosine builds up in your brain. The longer you're awake, the more it builds up, and the sleepier you feel. It's like a sleep pressure gauge. When you sleep, adenosine gets cleared. You wake up refreshed because the pressure is gone. Now, when you drink coffee, caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors. It doesn't clear the adenosine. It just covers your eyes so you can't see how tired you are. The adenosine is still building up in the background. When the caffeine wears off, it hits you all at once. This is why the crash after caffeine can feel so brutal, and why people who are chronically sleep-deprived need more and more coffee just to feel functional, because they've never cleared their underlying adenosine debt. Then there's cortisol, the stress hormone. Sleep deprivation causes your cortisol levels to spike, and elevated cortisol does a number on your brain, particularly the hippocampus, which is the region most critical for learning and memory. Studies have shown that chronic sleep deprivation can actually shrink the hippocampus. That's structural brain damage, people, not metaphorical, actual measurable reduction in brain volume. The motivation and reward chemical. Sleep deprivation dysregulates your dopamine system, which leads to mood problems, reduced motivation, and, interestingly, increased cravings for high-reward behaviors, junk food, social media doom scrolling, impulsive decisions. Your dopamine-deprived brain is desperately looking for a quick fix. Ever notice how when you're exhausted, you want pizza and Netflix instead of salad and the gym? That's not a willpower problem. That's neuroscience. What chronic sleep loss does over time. Okay, we've talked about what happens day to day. Now let's zoom out, because if you're consistently sleeping less than 6 hours, not occasionally, but as your baseline, here is what the research says is happening to your brain over time. Accelerated cognitive aging. A major study published in Nature Communications in 2022, which followed nearly 8,000 people over 25 years, found that consistently sleeping 6 hours or less in your 50s and 60s was associated with a 30% increased risk of developing dementia. Not a small number. A third higher risk. Structural brain changes. Long-term sleep deprivation has been linked to reduced gray matter density, particularly in regions involved in cognitive function, attention, and memory. Chronic neuroinflammation. When the brain doesn't get proper sleep, the immune cells in the brain, called microglia, become overactive. Instead of just cleaning up damage, they start destroying healthy neural connections. It's your brain essentially attacking itself. One study found that after just a few days of sleep restriction, these microglia increased their activity by a factor that had previously only been seen in neurodegenerative disease models. Mental health deterioration. The relationship between sleep and mental health is not just correlation, it's bidirectional. Poor sleep worsens anxiety and depression, and anxiety and depression worsen sleep. It's a cycle that's incredibly hard to break once it gets going. This is the long game. This is what it costs you. Not just tomorrow's productivity. Your brain's long-term structural integrity. So here's the thing. I didn't make this video to stress you out or make you feel like you've already destroyed your brain, because the research also shows something incredibly hopeful. The brain is remarkably plastic and resilient. When you start prioritizing sleep consistently, a lot of this reverses. Your amygdala calms down, your glymphatic system gets back to work, your memory consolidation improves, your cortisol levels normalize, your hippocampus can regenerate. Sleep is one of the most powerful, free, accessible tools for optimizing your brain health that exists. And most of us are just not using it. So here's what I want you to take away from this video. 1. Sleep is not laziness. It is the most productive thing your brain can do in a 24-hour period. The people at the top, the elite performers, the top CEOs, the professional athletes, they are increasingly the ones who are obsessive about their sleep. 2. You cannot cheat biology. Caffeine can mask the feeling of tiredness. It cannot replace what sleep actually does to restore your brain. 3. You owe it to yourself to take this seriously, not because of some productivity hack, but because you have one brain. You've got to live in it for the rest of your life. Now, I want to make a follow-up video, how to fix your sleep, what actually works, what the science says about sleep quality, sleep timing, and the habits that move the needle the most. If you want that video, hit the like button. It tells me you want more content like this, and it helps this channel grow, so I can keep making these videos for you. And drop a comment below, tell me, how many hours are you actually sleeping right now? If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a video. I'll see you in the next one.